I think he's going to be an outstanding player, but it's going to take him a period of years. He's a playmaker that sees the floor. The problem is he's physically weak.
Shaun Patrick Livingston, born September 11th, 1985. In my most recent feature of 3 things that scare me about Ja Morant, I touched on injury and how debilitating one can be for a basketball player, especially if you're a player that depends on athleticism like Ja Morant or his deja vu counterpart Derrick Rose. Although not nearly as athletic, nor did he need to be as a 6'7" point guard, Shaun Livingston was also a victim of injury that completely changed the player he was expected to be, along with these other reasons. Even told by a doctor there was a possibility he'd have to have his leg amputated. He was drafted in 2004 and expected to be a transcendent talent / unicorn that was before his time, in that in those days you just didn't see point guards his height and with as natural a feel for the game like he possessed. As an amateur, he was usually compared to another unicorn before his time point guard, Magic Johnson, when Livingston was in high school, and those comparisons had basketball salivating to see what he'd be able to do as the 2000s version of Magic Johnson, equipped with the throwback afro and all. Besides his height, he was sought after for his poise on the floor as a leader, his passes that seemed he had eyes in the back of his head, and his ability to shoot over smaller guards with his height and 6'11" wingspan. Safe to say, potential-wise, many saw Livingston becoming a Hall of Famer one day with all those gifts it seemed he had, or at least an NBA All-Star or two. So the Los Angeles Clippers thought in 2004 they could get as lucky as their cross-the-hall neighbors Lakers got in 1979 at number 4 in 2004 and selected Shaun Livingston to lead their veteran roster and give some hope to a team that hadn't made the playoffs in 7 years. He's played 15 seasons in the NBA and won 3 championships with the Golden State Warriors during their dominance, and that's pretty much it. He was still an enjoyable player to watch because he exemplified what it meant to get up off the mat, dust yourself off, and persevere. With so much promise and equally as much opportunity, many can't believe a talent like Shaun Livingston didn't amount to more than just a journeyman playing for 9 teams in 15 years and never averaging at least 10 points a game in a season at least once in the NBA. As far as the world-class passing ability he supposedly had entering the league, he averaged at least 5 assists only twice in his career, with a career average of 3 a game. But, like mentioned, all wasn't bad. He still became a champion, and on those winning teams was one of the more reliable players on both ends and made his share of big shots to help the team become what they are in history. But still, sometimes I think to myself, what would Shaun Livingston have been if these things didn't happen? Let's talk about it. It's your boy JC, Stunted Growth. Let's get it, man. Take a minute to like, subscribe, and comment on who I should do next. Shaun Livingston was a 6'7" point guard from Peoria, Illinois that always knew he would be a basketball player. Partly because his height always gave it away, and because he was always talented enough to play with the older boys. He won back-to-back state championships in high school, and before that even led an 8th grade team to a state championship while in the 4th grade. He was ahead of his time in every way, leading to being ranked the nation's number 2 overall prospect behind Dwight Howard and in front of names like Rajon Rondo, Kyle Lowry, Al Horford, and more. He was committed to play for the Duke Blue Devils before he received assurance that he'd be a top 5 pick in 2004, should he declare early, and that's what he ended up doing. Stunt number 1, that was a bad decision. In hindsight, matter of fact, immediately many could see that Shaun's deciding not to go to college and develop further for a few years, instead opting to go straight to the league, was a bad decision for his career individually because in no way was he ready. At the time, no one was able to recognize that, even though the evidence was right there. At his pre-draft combine showing, he couldn't even lift 185 pounds on the bench one time. His body just wasn't ready to skip a whole step like what college basketball was in those times, being groomed against that level of competition. Yes, he wound up becoming a top 4 pick, meaning guaranteed money and a chance to achieve his dreams at a younger age and the ability to break records and aim for the history books. But some guys just aren't physically developed yet, and that was Shaun Livingston. The thing is, it's hard to project which player that isn't ready from a draft, especially one with such potential like Livingston. It's even harder as a player to be real with yourself and accept that you aren't the player people make you out to be. Therefore, need a few years of development on a level a little tougher than the one you dominated and gain the confidence you have now on. A confidence and ego that will always say, hey, make the jump, you're good enough, you're ready. Except rarely are high school prospects ready according to statistics, and Shaun Livingston, for more than one reason, could be a huge example. Physically mainly, with his scrawny frame almost Kevin Durant-esque. In a time grown men still played basketball, Livingston fell behind his peers early. He averaged 7 points, 5 assists, and 3 rebounds as a rookie, even worse numbers in year 2, and in a career-high 29 minutes a game in year 3, he still couldn't crack 10 points a game to go with 5 assists and 3 rebounds again. And probably the biggest example his body just wasn't ready was stunt number 2, him snapping his knee. Shaun Livingston had arguably the most gruesome on-court injury in the history of the NBA. I remember seeing it and not believing this could happen in basketball. You only ever saw those kinds of injuries in football or freak accidents at the time. The moment was February 26, 2007 against the Charlotte Bobcats. He describes that moment as going up for a layup, one he's done countless times over, coming down, and his leg just wasn't under him. It happened in the first 3 minutes and 50 seconds of the game, and as you heard him scream in pain, as the gym became quiet and his teammates look in shock, you knew things would never be the same for Shaun. He injured everything he possibly could in his left knee, and as the doctor first assessed the damage, he informed Shaun there could be a possibility he could lose his leg to amputation, how bad it looked at first. He required months of rehab to even be able to walk again, as basketball seemed at that point it was completely over. This was now 3 straight seasons since he entered the NBA that he struggled physically on that level, as he just wasn't ready in the first place to make such a jump to the pros, and in this instance, he suffered the most. No, he probably wasn't going to be Magic Johnson even without the injury, which we could all see from year 1 or 2. But there was still hope he could finally adjust to the NBA level and find his pace and start producing like the 4th pick caliber player the Clippers chose him to be. But after this injury, he was never the same. Stunt number 3, not being a good enough shooter. And lastly, Shaun Livingston not being a good enough shooter, especially from deep, hurt his career and maybe could even be the cause of his knee injury that caused him to miss the 07-08 season and pretty much the next 3 years, playing 96 games in total since his knee injury from 2007 through 2010-11, where he played 73 games for, ironically, the Charlotte Bobcats. Had he have a better jump shot that could balance his drives and sometimes opting for an easy 2-dribble pull-up or 3-pointer, it maybe could have helped protect his toothpick of a frame. Of course, later on he became known for his mid-range jumper, but you wish he learned that a lot sooner. I always stress that shooting can take you anywhere you want in basketball, that one skill. You don't have to be anything else, just a good shooter, and watch the doors that will open up. Ask JJ Redick or Joe Harris. From 3, he shot at least 30% 3 times in 15 years. He found his niche in Golden State at the tail end of his career and mid-range teams to death in the clutch. A skill you wish he developed sooner. Developed, keyword. All in all, it's amazing Shaun was able to play as long as he did. After his knee injury, it was almost certain he was done. He's a hard worker and strong-minded individual you have to be to overcome what he had to. He had a solid career and transitioned into an executive role for the Warriors, a career he now calls fortunate and grateful to have had. Salute, much respect, but for these reasons, his growth was stunted. It's your boy JC, Stunted Growth, and I'm out.